Okay, we are officially recording. So welcome to day 3 of this week's nationwide drill. Today's topic is data sharing among partners. The topics that we'll go over today, we'll give a recap of, that should say day 2. We'll give a recap of day 2. We'll talk about day 3 logistics, event data that you are now going to be seeing, NARAC products and GIS files, and action items for you for today. We are on day 3 out of the 4 specific days of the drill. The last day, Friday, is a hot wash and closing webinar, so you all are more than halfway through. And again, today's topic is data sharing among partners. As a reminder, you all were split up into regions, and you all were given ROS task force leaders to assist with your drill coordination. Depending on your state, you have access to your region's nationwide drill event. So if you are in Region 1, you have the Nationwide Drill 2024 Region 1 event to work in. And again, depending on the state that you're located in and your region, that's going to correspond with the event that you are working in today and throughout the rest of the week. I will hand it over to Bill for a scenario recap so we can all be refreshed with the RDD scenario. Bill?
Great, thanks, Christine. So some of you might not have participated yesterday. That's fine. We've tried to make this so that if you missed some, not only could you be caught up in these recaps, but that you can go look at the videos. The scenario is a radiological dispersal device. It's an incident that has been created 7 times over in 7 different RAP regions. And we just picked a location to try to maximize play among the participants, despite the fact that, as we noted yesterday, whether you're in a directly impacted region or if you're in a neighboring supporting region, you will have lots of things to do, lots of demands on you by your constituencies, the public, legislators, agencies, your governor, etc. The detonation was at a specific location, and it was great to see that a number of the regional teams out there put out the RDD layers from RadResponder. Some of them are starting to look ahead with that to get a sense of wind direction and maybe even thinking about what they'll see today. Yesterday, there was no data. It was just overlays. Today, you'll have a lot of data, and I'll talk more about that shortly. The detonation included radioactive materials that emit alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. And it is surmised on the basis of downwind measurements that have been collected so far that hundreds to thousands of curies of each isotope were released, and that in the vicinity of the detonation, the blast left the kind of damage that you would have recognized from the Oklahoma City bombing, wherein not only were there large numbers of casualties. In this case, most of them that are fatalities are, all of them for fatalities are from the blast. There's a larger number who have blast and burn injuries, and then there are also some people that have had some significant dose, but dose is not a cause for life safety. It is the blast and any other non-radiological elements of it that are very likely to be the life safety issues. And of course, there has been damage to critical infrastructure, not just by the blast, but by the very large number of resources that came to play from the municipalities, the county, and the state, as well as now on this day, starting to see some of the earliest elements of the federal footprint. All right, I think that's it for me for now.
Thanks, Bill. So with our day 2 recap, we introduced the event scenario, which was that RDD Bill just mentioned. You accessed your region's nationwide drill event, and you reviewed the partners on the event. By looking at the partners list for your region, you were also able to see which organizations are participating in this nationwide drill. You looked at the event map to see where the incident has occurred, and you created user drawings to identify critical infrastructure, road closures, anything that you wanted to identify. Maybe that's an evacuation zone, etc. And you met with your region to discuss discussion item number 4 on day 2's participant guide. Bill, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. Just back to that recap for a second. I'm so impressed with the work that I've seen come out of this collection of 7 regions. I was with Christine and Angela Leak this morning on a pre-drill call, and it's remarkable what I've seen so far. I'm really so happy about the outcome so far. But in particular, I'm very pleased that our Ross task force leaders have been able to add to the partnerships. Hopefully more of them are getting into organizations if they haven't had an affiliation, especially the Ross who are not task force leaders. We'd like all of our Ross, about 360 of them trained now, that we can get them all into organizations. And that's going to be important that we have more Ross to help out in areas. When I was the radiological health advisor for the governor in our state EOC for nuclear power plant emergency exercises, I needed to have, I wish I could have cloned 4 of myself or more to be in so many different places across the state in response to the exercise scenario that was playing out there. That's what we need to think about today. There's going to be a lot coming at you today, and you need to delegate. Look at the talents of your team. Try to take advantage of what they're good at. Also, poll them if you haven't yet to make sure that you're aware of what those talents are. Everything that we're doing in this exercise, because it would be the first RDD in the United States, would very clearly be handled at emergency operations centers, first at the locality, then at the county, then at the state, and of course there would be federal emergency operations centers. All of this means that we're going to have a large team of subject matter experts in everything from environmental protection to agriculture to public health. We need to make sure that Ross are not trying to do everything. Also, that Ross are not replacing the authorities having jurisdiction. They're supporting those AHJs. We want you to try to make sure that as you work through the data sharing, data use, data assessment of today and tomorrow, that you work with your partners, other subject matter experts, incident commanders, or simulate that, at least think about that and how you would do that today. Really important for the Ross, for these emergency operations centers, is to interpret data products, because there's a lot of people unfamiliar with them, especially where these RDDs occurred in a lot of places where there is no nuclear emergency response infrastructure. The consequence report that will be delivered or has been delivered today and the GIS overlays are the key data products for the Ross to help interpret. They are very dense, information dense, and we need to remember they're models built on early incomplete data, and therefore we have to be prepared to adapt, to be able to not only adapt to new findings like new measurements, but also developments that occur and the impacts of our own response activities. So want to just go to the next slide. Remind you that data is critical to decision making. That's why RadResponder was started after Fukushima. States, agencies, all of government, a lot of the private enterprise needed to know what was going on in Japan, what was it meaning for us here in the United States. And RadResponder was developed to provide that data so decision-making could be taken on and be efficient and effective. We need to be careful with the collection and presentation of data for that decision-making. In an RDD, there will be immense amount of data and demands for more. And we have to be careful that we don't let it bury any of us. And we have to be careful about version control. If you're looking at the data that came in 0900 and now it's 1500, there could be many changes. There may be a lot more that colors in the picture much better. As with many things, if that data is inaccurate, it can lead to inappropriate decision making. So the people in the field that are inputting this data, we need to make sure we train them. And in a lot of cases, this could be just-in-time training so that they know how to do it and they know the importance. Telling people why is as important as telling them how. We also need to have a backup to that frontline entry of data in the form of diligent and comprehensive data validation. In this kind of incident, we would likely have a data validation center, a collection of people who could look at it and say, that doesn't make sense. We need to send the team back out to get a retake. Or maybe that is something that is unexpected and there may be reasons for it, like debris, radioactive debris is piled up along a building, and that would be natural when the wind blows radioactive material. We need to investigate those things further. It's not all false. Some of it's true and demands additional investigation. And we've got to make sure that because we're going to have numerous jurisdictions involved, numerous agencies within each jurisdiction, numerous levels of talent within those who are out there collecting, validating, and using this data, we've got harmony about how we do it. That's why we're doing this now in a drill, so that maybe you can work on having collective procedures for data validation, collection, and use. So when a real incident occurs, heaven forbid, that we are ready. And that's what we're going to focus on today and tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we are going to now talk a little bit about some of the questions that I saw being posed yesterday. These were mostly through the RadResponder Teams chats. I know a lot of you have created your own Teams channels to meet and correspond with one another, which is great, but that does mean, that I don't have the visibility on that, which is fine. But some of the questions that were posed from day 2, which I think are important things to think about. One of the questions was, what if the local agency where the incident occurred doesn't have a CBRN responder organization? So some responses were maybe it's the closest jurisdiction that has access to CBRN responder, or maybe for an incident this large or this high profile, maybe a higher level agency such as the state creates the event. Just things to think about. Another question was, what if multiple agencies create an event for the same incident? That is something that very likely could occur. However, we can merge events together so that way we're all looking at the same set of information for the same incident. And then another thing you want to think about is, how would you incorporate ROS in this response? Looking at day 3, so ground truth data, modeling products, and reports have been added to all of your region events. You're going to work with your region to determine how the data would be shared in the case of this fictional incident. And day 3 is all about discussion. You aren't going in and manually assessing all the data points. You aren't necessarily making any changes to your event, but you are going to have those discussions on what you would do or things that you need to think about further. So in your events, depending on the number of states involved in the region, there's going to be a variety of different numbers of field surveys for each event, but you all have field surveys. You all have NARAC consequence reports, and you have NARAC GIS products available for you. Like I mentioned for the data, it's depending on your reading or your region, the number of data points will differ. For the sake of this exercise and as an artificiality, all data was collected at the same date and time. So again, that's just one of those exercise artificialities and scenarios that we want you just to roll with and not fight. You can view the data from the tables and or from the event map. Both are great ways to see what the highest readings are, take a look at the concentration of readings, where are there readings that you would like to see information, but it's not available. And you can use those NARAC products to complement the ground truth data. So from your event map on your GIS files page, you can open up that layer, select choose GIS files to show on map, and you'll have two products, the agricultural NARAC products and just the general NARAC products that you can choose to enable and then display on your event map. Now, these layers are going to be very useful to see visually. However, to download those consequence reports that give more information on what those layers are telling you, you'll go into your event document library and you have two PDF products available for you, the agricultural consequence report and again, just the general consequence report. A couple things that you'll want to be thinking about, but again, not necessarily making those changes because this is a lot of information that's being thrown at you today. So one of the questions in the participant guide is to have you just look at those thresholds and severity ranges. Do you need to update them to better reflect the scenario? What does red mean in this case? And again, you don't actually need to change them for this event because that could be a whole rabbit hole that you go down about what your ranges should be, but it's important to discuss if and why you would want to change them. Another thing that you'll note is that some data may be hidden due to the collecting organization's assessment policies. Unassessed data will therefore be unavailable for you to view. You'll see that data has been collected, like you can see in the screenshot, but you won't see what the value is. So think about how you would address this in a real event. Depending on your region, you'll either have between 2 to 5 readings that are unavailable to you because the organization that collected it has an assessment policy that dictates that the readings are hidden until it's been assessed by them. Assessment delegation is something that you want to think about as well. So event managers do have the ability to grant organizations to be a delegate to assess other organizations' data. Again, you don't need to actually assess the event data for this drill, but you should discuss with your group if you would want to do this or leave assessment to the organizations that collected it. In the participant guide, we do have resources, and we do have one particularly on the data assessment capability and managing delegates and how you can go about doing that. When you download your participant guide, number one can be done individually. So this is just having you go into your event and take a look at the data, making sure you can find the data in the tables and the map, the NARAC products, and those consequence reports. And numbers 2 and 3 are to be discussed among your region. A lot of these are just, again, discussion questions that we want you to consider. We do have notes here about, you don't actually need to prepare briefings. We don't want you to actually go in and assess all the data points. You can if you want to take things further. However, this is merely for discussion. Number 4, depending on your state and your relation to the incident, you'll have a different section. So if you are the state where the incident occurred, you have 3 questions to answer. If you are a bordering state of the incident, you have 4 different questions. And if you are a non-bordering state, you have another set of questions. Save your answers and your guides. That way we can use your responses and insights for our drill after action report. However you want to go about sharing this is up to you and your region. You can either send them to your ROS task force leaders or to the Seabird Responder support. Again, whatever your region decides, maybe your region wants to get all of your responses and consolidate them. That's going to be up to you and your region. I did link the folder where the participant guide can be found for today, but there are PDF and Word document versions for today's participant guide in that folder. And if you wanted to access the general nationwide drill folder with all of the resources. From your resource tab at the top, you'll select resource library, scroll down on that page till you see the document section, and then open up the 2024 RadResponder Nationwide Drill Preparedness Through Partnerships folder. And here you'll have your daily kickoff meeting slides, which are the ones that we're presenting from today, and the participant guides for each day of the drill. So what do we want you to accomplish before tomorrow, before day 4 of the drill? Have an understanding of the data associated with the incident. Determine what your organization's role would be if this was a real incident. Discuss how you would coordinate a response with your regional partners. And day 4 will focus on communicating to the public about the incident. So you won't be developing communication tools today, but something to think about for tomorrow. So barring any questions, we do want you to use the remaining time during the session to coordinate with your region and start working on your day 3 tasks. We will stay on the line for a bit if there are any particular questions, but for specifics on how to access the resources, go ahead and either download the participant guide. It will tell you where you can find them, or download a copy of the slide deck for that step-by-step. And as always, if you have any questions relating to RadResponder, you can email us at support@cburnresponder.net. And if you have questions about how to answer the various discussion items from your participant guide, that's where your ROS task force leaders are going to come into play, and your other regional partners. So with that, I'm going to end the recording.